The FIA is falling apart, F1's new launch could be a game changer, and McLaren and Red Bull have been cleared from any cheating. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get into the latest F1 news. A detailed investigation by FIA staff who visited Red Bull's Milton Keynes factory has concluded that the squad did not use its controversial front bib adjuster in an illegal manner, Motorsport can reveal. Red Bull had found itself at the center of intrigue in recent weeks over a tool it had tucked away in its car to raise and lower its T-tray. Rival teams were concerned that the adjuster could have been used to alter the height of its front bib between qualifying and the race, which would be a breach of parc ferme rules. When the issue first erupted ahead of the United States Grand Prix, the FIA moved quickly to add a seal to the device so that it could not be adjusted once the cars were in parc ferme. But that did not stop questions from some rivals, who felt that potential historical use of the system needed looking at to be sure that Red Bull had not broken the rules in the past. The FIA insisted, however, that there was no evidence it had been used illegally, and that it would be difficult to try to check on previous use over the past couple of years. Its single-seater director Nicholas Tombazis said in Austin, "To go and retroactively actually prove exactly what has happened before is difficult, and we don't think we have the ability to go and investigate 2 years' worth of situation. I mean, honestly, can I say with complete certainty about whether there's ever been anything irregular? No. Can I say that the matter is closed? Yes, absolutely." That was not enough to quell the concerns from Red Bull's competitors, though, with both McLaren and Mercedes expressing unhappiness over the situation and urging the FIA to do more to be certain that nothing untoward had taken place. McLaren CEO Zak Brown called on the FIA to interview Red Bull staff to dig deeper into the matter, while Mercedes boss Toto Wolff said he anticipated intervention from FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Asked about the FIA's initial claim of it being a closed matter, Wolff said, "I cannot speak for the FIA at all. I cannot speak for Nicholas. Obviously that's something that's been not spotted for a long time. But I think the leadership of the FIA is going to look at that and say, what are we doing with this?" Following this lobbying, it is understood that the FIA duly agreed after the Brazilian Grand Prix to launch a more formal investigation to be sure that Red Bull was not hiding anything. That culminated in a visit to the team's Milton Keynes factory last week by senior FIA personnel to look in detail at the situation surrounding the front bib adjuster. Sources have indicated the visit included looking at data, the car, design drawings, and speaking to relevant personnel. Following that visit, the FIA has now said that Red Bull has been given the all-clear, and that the governing body is satisfied the device was never used outside the regulations. In a statement, it said, "The FIA regularly reviews and inspects the conformance to the technical, sporting, and financial regulations of the F1 teams, and this may involve spot checks at the circuit or inspections and investigations at the team's factories. Similarly, it is the prerogative of the F1 teams to bring to the attention of the FIA any concerns about the compliance of their competitors with the regulations, and this phenomenon is clearly intensified in championships where there may be closer competition for the ultimate prize, as has been the case in 2024. The FIA takes any such issues very seriously and seeks to investigate them in addition to all the regular checks it carries out during a race weekend and beyond. As part of this assessment process, FIA technical representatives visited the Red Bull Racing headquarters to investigate in-depth recent allegations about their front floor design and its use. This investigation concluded that no breach has taken place, and therefore confirmed the position adopted by the FIA during the US Grand Prix in Austin. As well as the controversy over Red Bull's front bib adjuster, the FIA has also found itself involved in technical intrigue over alleged tire cooling tricks. Suspicions emerged ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix that several teams could have been injecting water into their tires to help cool them, which would improve their performance over race stints. The allegations are understood to have emerged amid claims that moisture and water marks were seen within some wheel rims after tires had been stripped following the Singapore Grand Prix. The FIA conducted investigations on this matter in Brazil, with Tombazis personally checking on tires and rims as they were taken apart after the sprint race at Interlagos. With there being no evidence of anything untoward being found, the FIA has also concluded that it is satisfied no teams were breaking the rules on this front. An FIA statement added, "In parallel, the FIA investigated during the last Grand Prix in Brazil recent allegations that competitors may have used water to manage overheating of tires. No evidence was found to suggest any irregular behavior. We consider both matters closed, but will continue to monitor the situation in detail. Back in 2019, Formula One bosses held a season-opening event in Australia to kick off the new campaign. All the drivers attended the show that was held on a big stage in Melbourne's Federation Square, which incidentally was free, and it was a standout success. For whatever reason, it was never repeated, presumably due to the lack of fans at the opening races in Bahrain and Saudi, making it much of an event. F1 has now revised the event, which in 2025 will take the form of a livery unveiling for all its 10 teams, which will be held in London's The O2 on 18th of February. It is a great idea on paper, a way to engage fans within a city center and generate interest during the winter. It is also a good barometer to test the value fans currently place on F1. All 20 drivers and 10 team principals will attend the event, which kicks off F1's 75th anniversary year in what is being billed as an incredible evening that will see fans immersed in the drama and spectacle that is Formula One as they join the teams to unveil their 2025 liveries. If the likes of Sauber, Williams, or Haas are content with the limited global media exposure they will receive, given they are going up against the bigger teams who are likely to attract the attention, particularly with Lewis Hamilton being unveiled as a Ferrari driver for the first time, then great. However, whether the sponsors would agree is another thing. A preseason launch date is usually picked by a team so as not to clash with a rival. It means each team gets a crack at unveiling their challenger for that season, giving it valuable brand exposure and airtime to its drivers and team boss. However, launching all 10 teams on the same day will reduce that impact, unless they still hold a separate event, such as a shakedown at a track, for example. F1 ultimately deserves credit for conceiving the event. However, charging fans between 58 and 113 per ticket could be a problem. It is understandable that F1 is trying to benefit from its increasing fan base, especially a younger demographic. F1 merchandise is now commonplace on high streets, and at this price point, around a quarter of the costs of an F1 ticket, it offers fans the chance to see their heroes in an accessible location. But 113? The organizers have promised top-class entertainment and special guest presenters, and in any case such as F1's current popularity, it will probably sell out. It's likely the older generation among us will balk at the cost, but the reality this is not the audience F1 are targeting. Rather, it is pushing for the younger fans, and if they are willing to cough up and enjoy it, then what's the problem? Barely a month goes by without a senior departure from the FIA, it seems, but the latest exit raises some serious concerns. Niels Vidich leaving immediately as F1 race director follows a worrying trend at Motorsport's governing body, and one wonders what is causing it. Vidich had held the position since 2022, when he replaced Michael Masi following the Australian's controversial handling of the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and was a popular figure within the organization. The German had started earning the respect of F1's drivers too. During race weekend briefings with the drivers, he did not always have all the answers, but he was getting there. The timing of his departure, and the fact it is immediate, is most definitely peculiar and requires more scrutiny. Sources say it was unprecedented, and that it comes 3 races from the end of the season makes the development even more unusual. Others have intimated that it has come after a fallout with FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem, but this has not been confirmed. Whatever the reason for Vidich's exit, it is part of a worrying trend as the FIA looks to be incapable of retaining senior staff. Luke Skipper, former director of communications, left the FIA in October 2024. This coincided with the departure of Jacob Bangsgaard, the former Secretary General of Mobility. Steve Nielsen also left his role as sporting director at the FIA in December 2023, just before single-seater technical director Tim Goss followed suit. Other departures from the FIA include the head of commercial legal affairs and the governance and regulatory director. Unsurprisingly, insiders say that morale is incredibly low at the organization, which has been perplexed by the exits of good people. The timing of Vidich's exit is interesting. F1 is gripped in a championship battle and at a time where strong and consistent leadership and decision-making is vital. It also comes after a strongly worded letter from the Grand Prix Drivers Association, which took aim at the FIA president. Has Vidich paid the price for that statement in the form of his job, despite not being the one criticized? We don't know at this stage. As the battered and bruised FIA organization limps over the finish line after another F1 campaign where it has been in focus far too much for a regulatory body, now is the time for some serious change. Vidic had initially shared the role with World Endurance Championship race director Eduardo Freitas when they were both brought in to replace Masi. He was himself an emergency replacement for the excellent Charlie Whiting, who sadly passed away on the eve of the 2019 Australian GP. What is evidently becoming clearer is that the FIA needs to rethink the structure it has for governing F1 races. With 24 races on the calendar, it is simply too much for one person to oversee. As with the ad hoc appointment of race stewards who work under the race director, too many questions are now being asked by drivers about the consistency of decision-making. It is clearly evident that F1 needs a professional, rotating group of race stewards who are not only answerable to the FIA president, but explain their decision-making to the drivers and indeed the media. Plus, how an answer to the FIA president's gripes lies in a pre-Abu Dhabi 2021 arrangement, Vidic's exit feels like another huge loss. But it should also provide the FIA with an opportunity to make a positive change. The problem is, will there be anybody left there to implement it? The Aston Martin Formula One team has announced Dan Fallows has stepped down with immediate effect from his role as technical director of the Silverstone squad. Fallows joined Aston Martin in April 2022, taking up the job of technical director after a long stint with Red Bull, where he rose through the ranks to become chief engineer, aerodynamics. Under his watch, Aston Martin enjoyed a brief growth spurt in 2023, taking 8 podiums with Fernando Alonso aboard the AMR23, but Aston's form then tailed off as rival teams caught up. This year it has been stuck in 5th place in the constructors' standings as it struggled to develop the AMR24, which led to the team's call for a change to try and turn around its fortunes. The team has now announced that Fallows has stepped down from his role as technical director with immediate effect and leave the F1 team. But he will remain active within the wider Aston Martin group in a yet-to-be-announced capacity. The Aston Martin Formula One team and technical director Dan Fallows have today jointly announced that from November, Dan will no longer serve as technical director of the Formula One team. Dan will remain with the group, a statement by the team read. In my time at Aston Martin, it has been a joy and a privilege to guide the technical team on their journey towards being race and championship winners, said Fallows. It is time for me to pass on the baton, but I look forward to watching the team's future success, which I am sure will come soon. Group CEO Cowell added, I would like to thank Dan for his contribution to Aston Martin in the last 2 years. Dan led the team to the success of the AMR23, which secured 8 podiums last season. As well as Cowell taking over from Martin Whitmarsh as CEO this year, the team has also headhunted legendary Red Bull designer Adrian Newey, who is set to start in March, as well as longtime Ferrari stalwart Enrico Cardile, who will also join in 2025. Fallows was set to report into Cardile, who will join as chief technical officer, but is now leaving his role with immediate effect. Autosport understands the team hasn't yet decided if Fallows will be directly replaced once its new hires are in place. In the meantime, Fallows' responsibilities will be absorbed by Aston's current technical leadership, which includes Deputy Technical Director Eric Blandon and Bob Bell, who holds the role of Executive Director, Technical. Alongside Aston's hiring spree, the squad has also moved into a brand new headquarters opposite the Silverstone circuit this year, with a state-of-the-art wind tunnel on the way. The Alpine Formula One team has officially confirmed it will switch to Mercedes power units from the 2026 season onwards. Alpine's parent company, Renault, formally decided at the end of September to go through with plans to abandon its works engine program in France's Viry-Châtillon, which had been working on developing brand new power units for 2026's regulations overhaul. It was widely understood that Renault chief Luca De Meo and his advisor Flavio Briatore had a deal lined up to become a Mercedes customer team instead, an arrangement which the team officially confirmed on Tuesday. The team's statement also announced Alpine would be switching to Mercedes gearboxes, which will help smoothen the integration of the German Marque's power units into the rear of Alpine's 2026 chassis. It said, BWT Alpine Formula One team, Mercedes-AMG high-performance powertrains, and Mercedes-Benz Grand Prix have entered into power unit and gearbox agreements from the start of the 2026 FIA Formula One World Championship. The multi-year agreement will see Mercedes-Benz supply the BWT Alpine Formula One team with power units for the duration of the new regulation era, from 2026 until at least 2030. Alongside the power unit, BWT Alpine Formula One team will also be supplied with Mercedes gearboxes from the 2026 season. The team remains focused on performing in the strongest way possible in the 2024 and 2025 seasons. Thanks to a shock double podium at the Brazilian Grand Prix, Alpine vaulted from 9th to 6th in the Constructors' Championship after what had been a torrid 2024 campaign thus far for Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. Autosport understands Alpine intends to explore a return to producing its own gearboxes from 2027, rather than fully abandoning its transmission program as part of a wider overhaul commissioned by its new management. Alpine will effectively take over the supply line currently in place for Aston Martin, which will shift from Mercedes to Honda power units in 2026. McLaren and Williams will also continue to be Mercedes partners in the new era, keeping the number of takers of the Brixworth plant's engines at 4 teams, including Mercedes' own work squad.
Speaking about the internal changes at the team's Enstone factory, Briatore told Sky Italia, "This year we have done a lot of cleaning up and we will continue to do so.
We have just taken a real evolutionary step so as not to hinder the 2025 project, and the step we have taken is clearly in the direction of 2025. Team principal Oliver Oakes added that the biggest changes at Alpine will take place ahead of next year and into 2026's crucial regulations reset. I think at the moment there's nothing that's going to change drastically between now and the end of the year, Oakes said. I think the real journey is sort of how we go through these next phases. There's a lot of support there with Luca and Flavio, and actually, I think that's actually something I'm kind of quite excited about. I'm just realizing it takes a lot of time. Nothing's as quick as you hope. You've got to have patience and also build trust, because this team has been through a lot for a few years. We need to make sure we make always the right steps forward. Karun Chandhok believes Mercedes' performance trajectory is hard to read, given the Brackley team's inconsistent results since F1 introduced the latest era of regulations at the start of 2022. The contemporary ground effects rules have not been kind to the 8-time Constructors' Champions, which has struggled to marry conventional aerodynamics with the requirements from the floor of modern F1 cars. A considerable amount of downforce is now derived from ground effects and the floor, with striking the right balance across the car often the key to extracting the most lap time. Mercedes initially took a developmental wrong turn, which set it back against benchmark of Red Bull. It took over a year for the team to unwind the flawed philosophy and adopt a new concept, in part due to an anomalous 1-2 finish at the 2022 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. However, since falling in line with the prevailing wisdom of the current rules slate, it has failed to consistently yield better results. After going winless through 2023 and various false dawns of improved performance, the team has claimed 3 victories this season, but the pace of the W15 has since taken a step back again. It's very hard to read their situation because I feel like in the last 3 years on so many occasions, you hear them say that they have finally understood the issues and could crack it, said Chandok to Betway when discussing the unusual performance arc of the Brackley squad. A good example was the front wing, which unlocked some performance, and we then see a temporary boost in results this year like Canada, Spain, or Silverstone. The car looked good and competitive. But it's then just gone away again, and they've gone back to being the 4th best team. It's been the case since these set of regulations came in. It leaves Mercedes in a difficult position, trapped between trying to correct the issues it has endured and build on the promise it has shown during the current rules and turning its attention to the next slate of regulations. That era begins in 2026, meaning most teams will do little to develop their carryover cars during the winter between this season and next. Chandhok has questioned the virtue of Mercedes addressing its existing problems, instead suggesting the team may opt to be fully focused on 2026 and beyond. On recent form, you would have to say they are the 4th best team, the 40-year-old added. Are they going to go completely back to the drawing board and do a whole new car for 2025 ahead of the new regulations in 2026? I don't think so. The 2025 car is going to be an evolution of 2024, so maybe their effort is fully focused on 2026 and getting the best car for the new regulations. That is it for this video. I'll see you around.